following program was provided by an independent producer solely responsible for its content. The opinions expressed do not necessarily represent the views of this station, its staff, board of directors, or underwriters.
Every day, citizens around the country are faced with new dilemmas that affect them profoundly. Whether it's injustice, discrimination, falling through the cracks, scandals and cronyism, balances of power, ethics, religious freedoms, state versus citizens, and unfunded mandates, and the list goes on and on and on. Welcome to Speak Up. It's directed at those who have fallen through the cracks, and it gives them a voice. It's your turn to speak up, to stand up and fight back.
Welcome to Speak Up. I'm Kevin Avard, your host, and today I am joined with J.P. Marzullo, who is a candidate for Senate District 9? 8. Yep. 8. I want to welcome you to the show.
Thank you. Thanks for having me here.
And thank you for stepping up to the plate. It looks like there are a lot of people that are coming up that are kind of tired of the same old politics. And
exactly.
You're running.
I am.
I heard a lot of people cheering when that name came up. It seems like you're going to be one of the reformers.
I hope so. That's one of the reasons why I'm running. I just didn't like what I saw going on in Concord. It was the same old thing that was going on, and I kind of had enough of it.
Right.
And there were two votes that sort of pushed me in that direction. One was on expanded Medicaid,
yeah.
Or Obamacare, if you will, and the other was the gas tax. So at that point, I said I had enough, and it was time to step up.
Now you have a history in the medical field.
I do. Yep. I spent 40 years working for radiology companies, mostly Philips,
mm-hmm.
and that's kind of where I got my teeth on healthcare.
Right.
My mom died of breast cancer when she was 54 in 1969, and that sort of drew me into the healthcare industry. I had a friend who actually was the CEO of a large pharmaceutical company. I was teaching at the time. He hired me and said, I just bought a company that sells and develops mammography systems. So there was a passion there to...
we have a common through my wife. My wife is in that field, mammography.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Yep, my wife is as well. That's how I met her, and we both were in that field for many years. And I really think we had the best healthcare system in the world. I worked all around the world in countries that had socialized medicine.
Right.
And I saw both the good and the bad of that. The good was in Sweden, where they were actually screening women for breast cancer, and it saved lives. So that part of it I liked, but I just thought we were going in the wrong direction.
Well, it came to my attention not too long ago that it seems as though this Obamacare they're pushing that back. As you know,
mm-hmm.
there are ladies that are getting screened in their 30s and then in their 40s right now. They're going for the routine. Some,
mm-hmm.
When they're in their 30s, there's probably a lump or something.
Right.
But they're saying, if you're in your 40s, get your breast exam. Now they're saying they're pushing it back to 50.
Right.
And my wife is scratching her head saying, wait a minute.
Right.
She never names names, but
right.
My God, this week, this lady, she just came in. She said she's fine. Bam. She's got breast cancer. And she's got it bad. And I'm hearing this over and over and over again. And they're younger. They're in their younger years. Is it the water? What? But pushing it back is the problem, it seems. It seems, well, wait a minute. If we do the preventative part, we catch it early.
Yeah. I think that's a good point. I think that's what's happening. And it's been proven if you catch it early, if you detect it early, you're going to save lives. There's been many, many studies done that show that. Mm-hmm. And you're absolutely right. For some reason, it's all of a sudden now, that's not the way to do it, and they're pushing it back. I'm not sure exactly why. I have, some of my own thoughts on that, but it's the wrong thing to do. It's proven that if you catch breast cancer early, people will live through it, and it can be treated. And it's unfortunate that they're doing that. That's one of the problems with the way we're doing healthcare right now. We sort of threw the baby out with the wash water.
Right.
And so were there things that needed to be corrected? Probably. There are some things they probably could have done a little better, but this is not the direction we should be going. And to take federal funding to do this, and in 2 years it might go away, I don't know of anyone who would then take that health care away from anybody. I mean, clearly we want to take care of the needy.
Right.
But honestly, in the 40 years I was in that business, I never once saw anyone refuse treatment at a hospital or in an emergency room. We have taken care of them.
Right. You know, 20 years ago, maybe a little bit longer, you know, I did sell insurance years back.
Okay.
And started off with Blue Cross, and I went through the whole thing. And for a short period of time, it was the Good Health Network, and it was the PPOs, the HMOs, the whole 9 yards. And I remember the buzz back then was, you know, this is all going to lead to social medicine. And a lot of people were poo-pooing it because they knew that would be a bad idea. And no, that's not going to happen. That's not going to happen. Well, sure enough, here we are.
Here we are, absolutely.
And, you know, everybody said, well, you're doom and gloom. And, you know, they broke the system.
Yep.
And when they just expanded Medicaid, they basically put a nice name, Medicaid, Medicaid, Medicaid. Well, that's just another name for welfare. And if you're expanding the welfare base instead of the workforce, you're creating a problem. You're creating more of a burden on the grandma who's on a fixed income, on grandpa who's on a fixed income, on the veteran who's on a fixed income. What were they thinking in Concord? Paul Ryan said that he wasn't going they were going to cut back on Medicaid. Now we're saying, well, the federal government's going to fund this at 100%.
Right. I know. I mean, that's certainly one of the issues, is how do they come up with that? You know, I went to speak to some of our senators after the fact, and they had come up, the Republican senators had come up with their own plan. Remember that, right? And I suggested to them that it would have been much better if they brought people like myself in there to actually talk to them about maybe the way we should be doing this or how we should handle it.
Right.
And there was never any effort to do that, but they were kind of in a box. They had to do it quickly. My feeling was they should have just taken a deep breath, taken a hard look at it, and see how it would work in our state. This is going to be a burden on everyone in our state.
Well, considering the fact that the federal government is already $18 trillion in the debt, I mean, how much money can they print? You know, you're looking at food prices, they're going up.
Oh, yeah.
It's gone up 11%. You know, meat prices, they're going up. You got the droughts, you have the gas prices that are going up. All this is going to be part of they're not including that into the inflation factor, but people are going to have to pay the price.
Yep.
And by adding this burden, it automatically says, well, we got to make up the money somewhere.
Right.
What are you going to do? Income tax? What, you know, are we going to expand gambling? Is that going to be the Hail Mary pass that everybody asks for? You know, do we live to support the government? The problem is that's where I'm running too. But
right.
I don't understand their reasoning. And whenever you have to legislate in a hurry, you didn't think it through.
Right, yeah, and I think that's really what the issue was. I mean, it wasn't just me. I'm sure there are other people who said, wow, what are you doing? You know, that was one of the incentives for me. You know, when we elect people to represent us, we want them to be honest and truthful with us, and you know, we want them to do what we asked them to do when we voted them in.
Right.
And I didn't see that happening. The person that was my senator, whose seat I'm actually running for, he wasn't representing me.
Right.
And I had had about enough of it, and it was time for me to step into that race.
Yeah, I'm looking at your palm card here. First of all, there's a beautiful picture of a dog. Who's the dog?
It's Bella the Bulldog.
Bella the Bulldog. I don't know if people will be able to get that. Bella the Bulldog. And
she also has a bow tie on.
And of course, I have my complimentary bow tie. I love this thing. This is a great idea. I wish I'd have thought of it. J.P. Marzullo, Restore, Preserve New Hampshire Principles. And if you go to the back, the first thing that catches your eye is integrity.
Absolutely.
I watched the IRS hearings today.
Unbelievable.
Integrity. I served myself on the redress committee.
Oh,
and,
great.
Which
is no longer there.
Which is no longer there because it was called the kangaroo court. I swear the federal government looked at New Hampshire and said, that's what we want to do.
Yep.
And what I mean by that is they want to wait you out.
Yep.
And they want to call it a kangaroo court. And that's what they called the redress committee. And we had people that actually sat on the committee who were actually being people from the town of Rochester were having a grievance with the secret meetings that were happening in Rochester. And there were actually Democrats that were sitting on that city council that were having those secret meetings who did not recuse themselves from the vote.
Oh, wow.
It was founded as credible with their grievance. Yeah, they're having secret meetings. The mayor had their attorney come in, and the attorney said, "Well, we're not having them anymore." Integrity, right?
Exactly.
She didn't recuse themselves. There are secret meetings going on for 9 years, documented. Wow. It's in the New Hampshire House calendar, 2010 through 12.
I mean, look, that's really the only thing I have in my life, and you as well, and other people, is our integrity.
Right.
If you don't have integrity, there's not really much. You don't make much of a person.
Right.
In your views and what you think, and it's all about integrity for me. So.
And you want the people that are representing you being able to keep your word. I think it was Don Gorman, former state rep, who said that the only capital that you bring when you're up there in the House or in the Senate is your word.
Exactly.
You violate your word once, you're done. That's the only capital you have. And if the people can trust you when you're going through some hard times to keep to your word, you're a winner.
Yeah, I mean, integrity really is doing the right thing when nobody's looking, and not expecting anything back from it. Right. You know, doing what's right and not expecting anything back, because that's the way you believe.
You know, there were some tough votes when we were up there, and
there's always tough votes. You know, tough votes, absolutely.
I remember we had a right to work issue.
Yep.
And it was tough because the balconies were filled with people that were very angry. They were giving people, you know, the fist. I'm watching you. They're giving the finger. They had the gauntlets that you had to walk through.
I went to a couple of those.
Yeah, and you know, God bless the people that stood their ground. I know that I had to walk through that gauntlet, and it was tough. But you know, if those people stood their ground when it wasn't popular,
right?
You want somebody like that. Can I address the people? I know this is your interview.
No, go ahead, please.
But you know, the people that were doing that were definitely with the unions, and you know, they were fighting against it. But let me just say something to the people that were doing that. I stood for right to work, and I still do. And I don't know where you stand on that.
I stand with right to work.
But keep in mind that if I can do that, if I can walk through that crowd, knowing, and with my tires being slashed, they got slashed, and I'll still be that same person that's fighting for you if you've been a victim of the courts. If you've been a victim and you're not seeing your children, if your parental rights have been violated, let me let you know that there's another battle out there, and I'll go through that same gauntlet for you, and I'll fight for your parental rights. And so I believe you will too, because standing up for right to work is a bold statement.
Yeah.
And we have to have it in our state. I'll let you talk.
No, I mean, no, I think I'm listening.
Yeah.
And I agree with you. I mean, I think it's, for me, it's like more freedom to work or choice to work. You know, and it's right is the same word as well, but I think it really is. It's a freedom. It's like any other freedom we have, and I just think that's the right approach. And I think if we're going to grow our economy in the state, we need to allow that. You know, people talk about bringing new businesses in. You were talking about fighting for people. I think we need to maintain the businesses we have here and help small businesses grow. And that has a lot to do with right to work as well.
You know, I've heard on the stump, you know, out there that New Hampshire is overregulated. And one of the reasons that people aren't even considering coming here, number one, it's not right to work. But number two, we're so regulated. You can't sneeze in New Hampshire without, if you're going to start a business, you got to make it business friendly.
Let me tell you a quick story if I can. I have a very small business, one of the smallest businesses in the state of New Hampshire. I have a New York style city hot dog cart.
Hey, all right.
All right. So you want to talk about restrictions. This is really kind of, it's kind of funny, but it's also sad. When I retired from the medical business, I'm not one of these people who can sit still. And when I get I wanted to be working out there and talking to people. And so we opened up a small business, and we keep our cart at a grain store just on weekends. It pays for our hay, for our wood, things like that. So the first thing we had to do was find out, we had to give plans of what kind of hot dog cart we were going to use. Now, that doesn't sound like it could be too hard, but you have to have 2 sinks on a hot dog cart. Now, the hot dog cart isn't much bigger than this table. So in 6 years, I've never seen anyone wash their hands in those sinks. I mean, you usually go in, you grab a hot dog off a cart, you're not going to sit there and wash your hands. So, but that's a restriction. You have to have 2 sinks.
Right.
The other restriction is you have to have a lot of licenses. I have a vendor's or hawker's license, it's called.
Yep, hawkers and peddlers.
Right. And because it's food service, I have to have a food service license as well. And then they come and they inspect your cart. But the craziest thing is, to me, is they test your water. Now, if you don't have city water, you have to bring your water in, and they test it through a lab in Concord. So you go in,
How much does that cost you?
It's $40. Now, that may not seem like a lot, but when you're selling hot dogs for $2, that's a lot of hot dogs, right? The margins, you have to look at that. So what happens is, this year, we had had enough of this. It was every year the same thing, because you know why? We used bottled water. We don't even use water from our tap. We use bottled water. So this year, my wife went in to get the water tested, and the woman gave her the kit and said, okay, bring it back and we'll test it. She said, I'll be right back. She said, you'll be right back? What do you mean? He says, I'm going to pour the water from the bottle that I use into this container. The woman said, what are you talking about? She said, we used bottled water, like Monadnock water or Poland Springs or whatever. And she said, well, what happens if you can't get bottled water? My wife said, then we're in serious trouble in this state if you can't get it. So she brought the bottle in. They taped the top of it. It wasn't opened. She said, don't open it. Okay, they taped the thing. Here, pay your $40. It goes to a different part of the building. And, my comment was, if you can find anything wrong with that, you're going to have to shut down one of these companies.
Right.
But we've had to do that for years. That's how crazy it's gotten with restrictions. I mean, and that's just a small example. I can't imagine. I met with some people at the Monadnock Mill recently, and you talk about restrictions and what goes on.
I just drove by that.
On the paper mill. Yeah.
Tracy and I went to Mount Monadnock yesterday.
I saw you hiking, and you made it to the top.
Yeah, and she got on my shoulder.
I saw that.
My yes shirt.
I did see that.
Yeah.
Yeah. So you're right. I mean, I think that's part of it. We focus an awful lot, though, on bringing companies in. I'd like to see us focus on those who are already here, that we can grow and make sure they don't move out of our state. And then part of that's, how do you keep young people in the state? And that's all tied together, I think, with the economy.
Right.
They always talk about tourists as our biggest economy. Well, I think manufacturing is pretty close to the top.
Oh, okay.
So
that's what I want to talk to you a little bit about. Common Core.
Yep.
There's a lot of issues. I went to in Hollis and Brookline High School. They had the forum talking about Common Core and how that it's going to get our kids ready for college and all that kind of stuff. Well, they talked about a committee that was called the Advanced Manufacturing and Engineers or something to that effect. And lo and behold, I happened to sit on that committee. And what I gathered from that committee was not what they were saying.
Right.
We want to get the schools so advanced. Well, that's wonderful. But manufacturers here in New Hampshire, and I'm telling you, they were pounding the table in that committee. The kids can't do simple arithmetic.
Right.
We need kids that can do this and do arithmetic.
So let me, in full disclosure, I'm on the Liberty Harbor Academy board. So that's the only school left that is not Common Core in the city of Manchester. And all the rest are Common Core related, even some of the other private schools. So, one of the things we talk about is skill levels. Not everyone needs to go to college.
Right.
We need to train young people to make a livelihood and have a future. And we need to concentrate on that. And simple arithmetic, you're right. I'm sure you've seen the Common Core way to get to the number 12, 6 and 6 or 12. And if you've looked at the way the kids have to get to it, I have no idea how they get there. It's very confusing, and it just...
it's the deeper way of doing it. That's what they say. Well, that's fine.
But I'm not sure what that means.
Yeah, and maybe we can build the pyramids again. I'm not really sure. However, the thing is, kids can't count change unless the register says this is how much they owe.
Right.
And it's the simple arithmetic. And not every kid that graduates from high school goes to college. And if you're spending the tax dollar money to prepare that child to go to college, and they're not going to college, and they never will go to college, or they never want to go to college, you've wasted their money and their education, and you've not given them the skill to get into the workforce.
Exactly.
You can get all this highfalutin stuff all you want, and that's fine. But unless you're going to go into be a biochemist, or you're going to go into, some kind of quasi-physics or Yahoo stuff, great, go for it. But that should be a selected type of education.
Right.
You need to build upon principle and upon principle. And I think the Common Core has usurped the local control.
Yeah, and I actually went and spoke to, I won't tell you which teachers union I went to speak to, but people thought I was, why are you doing that? Because I said, I want to know how they feel, what they think, and what they think of Common Core. Right. And I asked that question right out of the box. And I found that the teachers that have been around for a while said they don't like the fact that they don't have the input into the programs like they used to. Mm-hmm. And it was not a bottom-up approach anymore. It was now a top-down. So they may not admit that publicly, but there are a lot of teachers out there, good teachers, who understand how we need to be educating our students. So,
well, I think one of the things also, when you think about what's happened up in Guilford, the required reading.
Oh yeah.
Again, in Hollis Brookline, they had a nice forum. They showed all Homer and Iliad and all that kind of stuff. That's great reading. Good for you. That's what they're doing in Russia. They're doing it all over the world.
Right.
They have this great required reading. But then there was this book that was kind of slipped in.
Mr. Beer.
Mr. Beer. And it was called 16 Minutes, page 313. Google it.
Right.
I'm telling you right now, there was required reading.
Never went to the parents to ask them about it.
Never went.
Right.
And of course, it made Fox News.
Yeah.
He complained about it. He went a couple minutes over, or a couple seconds over.
Handcuffed and taken out.
Right.
Yep.
So, wait a minute.
What happened to freedom of speech?
What happened to freedom? Exactly. What happened to local control?
Right.
I've sat on city councils, planning boards, and local things like that. Mm-hmm. And I'm telling you what, people get heated. Yeah. Sure, and they got a right to. Hey, put a shed right over here. It was right next to that, and they start complaining about it, right?
I was a selectman for 6 years in my town. I know what that's about.
Exactly, and you got a deal, okay?
Oh, yeah.
So a guy comes in and talks about the porn that his daughter's reading as a required reading, and nobody said anything about it.
Right.
And I'm going to say something else, and I've said this on the other shows, and I'll say it again. They use the word Jesus Christ in a fashion that was horrible, but that's okay. But if you were to say, blessed be the name of Jesus, well, that's religion, and you can't do that. Mm-hmm. But if you say, in a way that
it's a slanderous type term, it's okay.
During a rape, that's okay.
Yeah.
That's, we're expanding the mind.
Yeah.
No accountability. And I know that's one of the things that you're talking about.
Yeah, and I mean, Dante said that the coldest places in hell are reserved for those people who do nothing in the time of great moral crisis. That's another reason why I'm running. I'm not going to do nothing. I'm not going to sit idly by while I see our state and our country destroyed. Mm-hmm. And I'm very passionate about running. Someone had meant, one of the people that are running against me said, I got bored. I retired and I got bored. And I caught that. I heard that statement, and my first reaction was, bored? You're bored? That's why you're running? You should be passionate. And
I don't want somebody up there that's bored.
Yeah, me neither. So, I mean, you know what it's like. You've served. Yeah. I've served my community as a selectman. You do this for a lot of reasons, and one of them is transparency. Yeah. I want the government to be transparent.
By being transparent, what do you mean?
I just want to make sure that the public knows everything that's going on. I mean, we're their servants. We serve them. And so we just need to make certain that everything we do is right up front, that there's no backroom deals being made,
right.
And that we're just, and integrity ties right into that, because if you don't have any integrity, you're not going to be very transparent.
I think in the Senate that's probably more crucial than ever, because there seems to be a barrage of lobbyists that tend to attack the Senate, probably more so than individual state reps. Maybe on the speaker level, I'm not sure. I didn't see as many lobbyists in our quarters. However, if you go to the Senate, you see them, they've got all the orange badges there.
Yeah.
And that tends to take away some of the transparency.
Well, I'm running against, in the primary, against a former lobbyist.
Oh.
And so I understand what you're saying. You know, people say to me, I really like you, JP, I'll support you, but I'm not in your district. And I'll tell you what I say to them. My vote is going to count for you as well.
Yeah.
My voice is going to count for you. There's only 24 of us in the Senate, and every vote that I look at, you'll benefit from.
Right.
The way I vote. So I just think people have to understand that, whether it's me or you or someone else, that's, you know, if you're going to support me, it's not about money. It's about supporting.
It's definitely not about money.
Yeah, I mean,
right?
I'm running against a former lobbyist who is, you know, you go on the state Secretary of State website, and you can see the kind of money these people raise. And it's about being honest with people, talking to people, working hard. I'm a grassroots person, and that's what it's about. I have a lot of millennials following me. They're working on my campaign with me.
Nice.
Because it's about trust. They trust that what I'm saying, and they can figure this out. They can look through anyone and see what their thoughts are. And
just let them speak.
Exactly.
It's funny. You can tell somebody who's got a canned speech, and then you can tell somebody who's going to give you the kick in the gut later that's going to surprise you with, oh, well, you know, we had all these other circumstances. I'm sick of it.
Yeah, and I don't have a stump. People say, well, what's your stump? I said, I'm the stump. Yeah. You know, ask me questions. I've been going around the district, Kevin, and I've been asking people what they're concerned with. Yeah. Because that's really what it's about for me.
And what are they concerned with?
Well, it's interesting because somebody asked me the other day, actually, I was on a show, and they said, what's the #1 issue in District 8? And I said, there isn't a #1 issue. There's a lot of issues because it varies from different parts. I mean, Sunapee, Newport is a lot different than Ware in Hillsborough. Yeah. So there are different thoughts. You know, I think healthcare ties into this a lot, but it's jobs in the economy. People are out of work. I talked to a former Marine the other day at the American Legion when I was down there, and he has 2 jobs and his wife has 1. They only have 1 child, but everything got cut back. So he's on part-time now on 2 jobs rather than full-time at 1 where he was covered by health insurance. It's no longer happening. So that's what's going on. I think clearly, and I didn't think that in the beginning, but now that I've traveled around my area, I really do. And the other thing is the students are worried about, how do I pay off my debt? Am I going to get a job in the field I actually studied for? Right. And am I going to be able to have the same kind of things that you had when you were growing up? And the answer to that, unfortunately, I think is no. And that's the thing that bothers me more.
How can people get in touch with you?
A couple of ways. You can go to my website, jp4newhampshire.com, and that tells a lot of history. I mean, the other way would be to email jp.marzullo, M-A-R-Z as in zebra, U-L-L-O @gmail. And I give my phone number out because I want to be able to talk to people directly. And that's 603-660-1403. So find me any way you can, and remember, bow tie on a stick.
I love the bow tie. That's great.
Thank you.
The bow tie and the bulldog. It's a great combination. I wish you the best, and I hope that you'll come back again.
I would love to.
During the campaign, and we'll talk about some other issues if at all possible.
Yep, thanks for having me on, Kevin.
All right, thank you very much.
Yep.
All right. So if you want to get in touch with JP, please contact him, JP4NH
.com. That's the website. Yep.
And you know, when you have individuals that'll look you in the eye and tell you from their gut what they believe, that's the person you want. That's the person I want. So until next week, thanks for watching Speak Up. If you would like to be a guest on Speak Up, please contact me at speakupnh@gmail.com. We'll help you be heard.
The preceding program was provided by an independent producer solely responsible for its content. The opinions expressed do not necessarily represent the views of this station, its staff, board of directors, or underwriters.